Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Poker Not Politics with your host, Tabia Collins. Last week during our talk show, we would have discussed ongoing projects and how it impacts our citizens. We would have opened our phones to receive calls to hear from our citizens directly to share their views, and this is what they had to say.
Hi, hello. Right now, I real frustrated. Yeah, we thankful for the development, but these projects taking way too long. Donkey years now. This road by me side building. Them said next month then gonna finish, and about 1 year now. Why is it that them can't complete these projects? Them not get people that managing them projects then they say so to ensure that when them work it complete within the time them say it real frustrating, especially bare traffic jam mean even one left me house for semi ago anyway. I just hope that them look after this thing and then find the proper solution, man, so that everything can go back to normal.
Those were the words of one of our citizens. And indeed, we are seeing many projects that would have started, whether in construction, in technology, in whatever area, we constantly see a delay. And so today we will be discussing project management from an estimation perspective. We might ask the question, why is it that projects are not being delivered on time? Is it finance? Is it lack of resources? We know that estimation is not always accurate, but poor estimation can create serious problems for our project. For example, we have like missed deadlines and project overrun, stress, and even dissatisfied stakeholders. Today, we would have invited three of our project management specialists who would enlighten us on some of the common estimation mistakes that project managers make while planning various projects. First, you would hear from Micheline Thorne, who is also a IT manager at the Bureau of Statistics. And we would like to hear our thoughts on the topic. So, Micheline, welcome and over to you.
Thank you, Tabia, and good evening, everyone. Hidden tasks are one of the biggest reasons estimates fail. Many managers assume everything will go smoothly, only estimating the visible work and overlooking hidden tasks. All right, so for example, if the Bureau of Statistics is planning to implement a digital data collection system for one of their surveys, let's say the household budget survey, the obvious task may seem to be set up tablets and collect data, but that is only the visible part. Someone must review and digitize the questionnaire. Also, they have to look at the escape patterns, ensure that they are programmed correctly. The questionnaire must be tested with the different components. Tablets must be procured, configured, labeled, and assigned. Also, user accounts must be created. Enumerators must be trained. Supervisors must understand the dashboard so that they can correctly and effectively manage the numerators. Also, backup procedures must be created. Help desk support must be available. And data confidentiality must be protected. These are not side issues. They are real project work. Planners underestimate the time needed to train enumerators to use tablets, to clean or to prepare the scripts for data cleaning, or even system integration. I'll take another example. That is, if the Bureau or any team at the Bureau wants to implement a new information system, they must estimate the time needed to install the system, configure it, and make it available to users. Additionally, they may forget several other supporting tasks that are necessary for the project to succeed. These hidden tasks may also include requirements gathering, stakeholders meeting, preparation of different forms of documentation. Also, it would include user training, system testing, communication with users, and the post-implementation support. Individually, these tasks may seem small, but together they consume a significant amount of time and resources, which in turn delays the rollout by weeks.
So, Micheline, it's not that we're bad at estimating the work we can see, but it's that we're terrible at estimating the work that we cannot see.
Exactly. And here's where the Guyana census is such a powerful example. The Bureau of Statistics commenced work on the 2022 population housing census in September 2022. Field activities and a preliminary report were slated for completion by mid 2023. That was the visible work. The part they couldn't plan for, the part they could plan for on paper. But what they didn't fully account for were the hidden complications. The finance minister later cited several challenges, including inclement weather, heavy rainfall and flooding in some areas. Remote access to communities were difficult, and persons not making themselves available to be counted. The Bureau had to do multiple repeat visits and extensive follow-up work. None of that was in the original estimate. None of that was in their budget. And those hidden tasks pushed the timeline from mid-2023 to the Bureau releasing the preliminary findings in 2025.
That's interesting.
It is. And it's exactly what happens when you plan for the best case scenario, rather than the realistic one. You don't build in buffers for the inevitable surprises. You don't factor in the work to make the work happen. And you end up with a project that's years overdue.
Thank you, Micheline. And now let's hear what Michelle has to say on another issue. Welcome, Michelle, and over to you.
Thank you, Tabio, and I must thank you for inviting me to your podcast this afternoon. Now, I would like to speak on the issue of the right technical input as it relates to estimates. And I'm asking the question, how can you not seek technical input for your project? An estimate created by the sponsor, a manager, or project lead without the input of an expert may not account for all areas of the project. This can lead to estimates that sound reasonable from a business perspective, but are not realistic from an implementation perspective.
Indeed, that is true. Those nuances may be difficult to perceive without technical input.
Yes, indeed. Technical experts are important because they understand the details of the work. They know what steps are required, what dependencies exist, what risks may appear, and what resources are needed. Their input can help the project team avoid underestimating the complexity of the project. For example, during a project's initiation, the requirements needed for a particular project or each step of the project may be unrefined, with the requirements not effectively ventilated. Therefore, during the planning of the schedule, cost, and resource, technical experts should be consulted to ensure estimations are planned in line with what is the true reality of the requirements. A manager may say, we just need to do a little adjustment to the system. However, a developer or a system administrator may know that this change may require database updates, integration testing, some security reviewing, and some UAT, and also some deployment planning. Without technical input, those details may be ignored. This may create frustration between management and the project team. Management may believe that the team is taking too long, while the team knows that the original estimate was never realistic. damaging trust and creating unnecessary pressure through power dynamics. I can use an example to put this into context. I'm currently working on a project where the estimates were created, mind you, not from an in depth analysis of the work that is needed for the project to succeed, but in my opinion, a surface level analysis with no tangible consultative process. It has now become evident that the time allotted may be insufficient as the time for the discovery phase is almost complete. But it is noticeable from the technical aspect that discovery has a lot more scope. This project has been allotted a fixed timeline, so we can already see a risk there.
Great point, Michelle. And I would like to ask the question, so what do you suggest can be done to mitigate project owners, leads, or even the stakeholders making this potential hazardous mistake?
Estimation. Estimation should be a collaborative process. Sorry, let me rephrase that. It should be a collaborative process. The project manager should involve all the persons who will actually do the work. This may include IT staff, developers, and engineers, even support teams and the external persons with the technical knowledge of the particular requirement or requirements. Expert insight is one of the most valuable tools in estimation. People with experience can identify issues that may not be obvious to others. They can also compare the current project with similar work completed in the past. The key lesson to be noted is that estimates should not be created in isolation. The people closest to the work should be involved in estimating it.
Just a question. What about deadlines that are unrealistic?
That's a very good question. In some projects, the deadline is decided before the work is properly estimated. This happens because of management pressure, customer expectation, budget cycles, and in public areas, a public announcement may be made. However, when the deadline is not based on the actual work required, it becomes a major project risk.
Very interesting thought.
Exactly. For example, if a company wants to implement a new customer service system within 2 weeks, we know that sounds attractive to management, but can it really happen? If the project requires data migration, user training, workflow design, testing, and change management, 2 weeks may not be so practical. Maybe the project manager can say to meet the deadline, we would need to reduce the scope and resources, accept a higher risk, or move some activities to a later phase. In project management, scope, time, and costs are usually connected. A change in one affects the other. And here is where change management becomes important. But let us not discuss that now, maybe in another episode.
Yes, it seems like an important topic we can discuss in our next episode, but you can continue.
Thank you. So to avoid unrealistic deadlines, project teams should estimate the work first, then agree on a reasonable schedule. If the deadline is fixed, then the team should adjust the scope or resources to match the available time. The key lesson is that a deadline should not be based only on external power brought to bear. It should be based on the real amount of work required to complete the project successfully.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. And final preserve the loyal here in studio. Hi, David. Welcome, and you can share your on our topic.
Thank you for the introduction, Tabia, and it's a pleasure to be here. So, the last common estimation mistake I want us to discuss is underestimating the work that remains after the main deliverable had been completed. And the mistake many teams make is estimating only the physical technical work, while forgetting the time needed for testing, approvals, and troubleshooting. From my working experience as part of a project team in working environments such as Qualfin and Total Tech, these activities can take time and coordination. And if we do not look at these areas in the estimate, the project timeline becomes unrealistic from the beginning.
Right, that is a very important point because when people hear that a system has been installed or configured, automatically they assume that the work is finished. But in project management, completion is not just finishing the technical setup. The project team still has to prove that the system works, that it is secured, and also that it meets the business needs. So, what you are really highlighting is that the should be estimated as the work and not treated as extra work after the fact, right?
Correct. That's exactly the point, Tabio. And working in environments such as Qualfon, this was important when setting up a new client project, such as launching a new program for our CSRs to support customers. And some of the main objectives were usually to, for IT that is, were usually to install the client tools, prepare workstation, configure user access, and to ensure that the team can support client operations. And while on paper, um, to non-technical staff, this may seem as though it is ready. It may something might be installed on a computer and still fail when tested in production environment. For example, I've seen situations where client tools were installed, but the application still did not work for simple reasons such as geo restrictions, or the IPs weren't whitelisted, or there was some block between the qualifier and the client, or maybe there was an issue with a third party provider. And in these cases, the issue was that the project plan may have estimated the installation time, but not the time needed to test connectivity and validate through the correct data centers, and to go through the necessary troubleshooting and connection problems that may arise. So even approvals also need to be included in the estimate. And during testing, the team may identify that certain ports or network configuration were required, or new network configuration are required, and opening ports without the necessary approvals can cause issue. So the estimate should include the time to review and the time for approval from the necessary departments before they continue.
Right, exactly. And it also shows why estimation is not just a scheduling activity, because it also depends on the on communication and coordination. The project managers also has to know which departments are affected, who must approve technical changes, and why risks may come from moving too quickly. And if the approval time is not considered early, the project can look delayed, or even the team is actually following the correct process.
Yes, Tabia, and this is where the project manager plays an important role. The project manager does not need to know every technical detail, but they must know how
Right.
to involve, who to involve, that is, what questions to ask, and when approvals are required. And if coordination is not estimated, the project may appear delayed, even though the team is completing the necessary work. So, to wrap up, in order to improve estimation, project teams should estimate the full project effort, not just the main deliverable. This means including time for technical testing, user acceptance testing, security reviews, documentation, training, and troubleshooting. And the key lesson here is that a project is not complete simply because the system has been installed or configured. It is complete when it has been tested in real environment, reviewed by the right stakeholders, and approved by the necessary departments, and accepted as ready for operation. good estimation should reflect the real work required to deliver a successful outcome, not just the fastest path to delivery. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Micheline and Michelle, for taking the time out to come into our studio and share your insights on some of the mistakes of estimation we would have discussed. Just for our viewers, 5 common estimation mistakes that are made in project management, and we would have explained or went in depth in ignoring hidden tasks, assuming everything will go smoothly, not involving technical experts, using unrealistic deadlines, and also forgetting testing, approval, and rework. And the lesson out of this podcast really is that poor estimation can affect the entire project. It can lead to missed deadlines, budget overrun, poor quality, and also pressure on the project team. And so, better estimation is possible when teams plan carefully, when they involve the right people, as mentioned before, when they consider risk and also include all the work requirements to complete the project properly. And we would have learned that the project estimation, it should not be created just to simply satisfy pleasure, but it should reflect the real work needed to deliver successful results. And so that wraps up our podcast for today. We want to say thank you all once again, and we will see you in the next one. Goodbye.